yeah.
And then we get into, have you thought about what you've been listening to?
I told Jenia the real answer, but I was like, I can't say that on this.
You can say anything.
No, I think you should.
Come on. I confess I was a Backstreet Boy fan and a Blackpink fan, so it can be worse than that.
Perfect.
So, welcome to Sparkling Harmonies. We are your hosts, François
and Lili.
We are two friends who don't quite listen to the same bands or the same genres,
but who are here to talk to you about everything and anything music related.
Yay!
So today we have two more Confront guests in our Confront series, where we delve into our old memories of band interviews and dealing with the magazine. So we'll let them introduce themselves. Go ahead, girls.
Who goes first?
You go for it. Now you spoke first.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I am currently working remotely in the Middle East. I work for a marketing agency in Montreal called OPM Pros. We specialize in affiliate marketing. I've been there for almost 4 years now. But before that, I used to co-run 2 different magazines with Jenia, who's going to introduce herself shortly. We worked there for, I guess, 10 years or maybe more. I know I should have probably known that before. Around 10 years. And I don't work in music anymore, but music is, of course, still a big part of my life.
And I'm Jenia Schukov. I currently work at the Canadian Independent Music Association. I was based in Toronto for 7 years, and now I'm back in Montreal. We showcase artists around the world. We give business opportunities to Canadian companies, all independents. And before that, I also worked at Confront with Mel and another magazine. And we were co-editors in chief. And yeah, that's me.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to both of you. Thank you.
So now we're going to get into some of our get to know your guests. So François, you can go ahead.
So what was your first album? Easy like that. Sorry, Melissa, because
yes.
Jenia already told us everything about her first love.
Just out of curiosity, what did you say? Was it Aerosmith?
No, it was probably Spice Girls on cassette.
Yes.
Good one.
But good guess.
My first one was actually also on cassette. It was the first Backstreet Boys album. I guess it was called Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first love.
It's funny, that was mine, but not on cassette. I got mine on a CD.
You're so young, Lili.
I think we're the same age, or like maybe 1 year apart.
Yeah, we're not that much difference, but that made me feel both nostalgic and a little old.
But I mean, cassettes are back in style. A lot of bands are releasing cassettes now.
So true.
And which one was your favorite? Which Backstreet Boy?
What was my favorite? Oh, which Backstreet Boy? Definitely Nick. I was a big fan of Nick.
Yeah.
Team blonde guy here.
Why? Who was your favorite?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm more into the music than all the drama and the lore around it.
That's true. It was probably more of a girl thing. I could rank them 1 to 5.
It's a late thing for me. I just opened myself to all the cheesy stuff and guilty pleasures. So
oh wow.
I will say AG because it's the more edgy one, so probably more a male thing.
I love it. Good choice.
And what's your most memorable experience with music? It can be anything, really.
I did not think of a good answer for this question, so I'm going to get you this on the fly. My best memory with music, probably back in my early 20s, getting to go to concerts across, I'm going to say across Canada, but across Ontario and Montreal, being a student and having the freedom to go to multiple concerts and following favorite bands. That was super, now that I think back on it, like I'm so glad that I got to do that. And I think also like a more recent favorite, because it's a standout for 2020, I got to cross off a bucket list concert from my list, and I got to see Celine Dion, the Queen, live, which was amazing. Like super, super awesome moment.
That's correct. And that's also really cool, because in 2020 you need some of those standout moments.
Exactly. That's how I felt.
So after speaking about my guilty pleasure, what are yours?
I love listening to 90s music. Like definitely, I don't know if that's considered a guilty pleasure. Like to me, that's just the music I grew up on. But my workout playlist includes Backstreet Boys, it includes Spice Girls, it includes Celine Dion. Like all of those. I mean, I grew up on Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls. I don't know who, like Britney Spears is on there, Christina Aguilera, like all of those 90s people, they all make it on my playlist. So definitely a guilty pleasure, but like an everyday pleasure.
It's funny because we've had this discussion on what is a guilty pleasure, and I feel like less and less people have what we call guilty pleasures, because everybody just kind of are confident in what they like and they don't care about it as much anymore.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be like, I don't know, I'm in my 30s now. Like, I just need to embrace the fact that I have loved the Spice Girls for 20 plus years. Like, that's crazy to me.
But also,
it just doesn't go out of style.
If we all listen to the same thing, it'd be real boring. Like,
that's true.
It's more exciting if we all have something we like.
Absolutely. And what are some of your artists of the moment? So this is a question for both of you this time, because it might have changed for you, Jenia, since the last time.
Jenia, you go first this time.
It hasn't. I was trying to think of a new answer, and I was like, no, I'd be fooling myself. My artist of the moment is still Noah Reid. His album's been on repeat for a while now, so I still got to go with him because he's a good Canadian musician, and I want to promote him.
Awesome.
Great.
What about you, Melissa?
So the answer that I like jokingly gave to Jenia, and I was like, I can't say this on a podcast, but I'm going to say it, is Celine Dion, because I'm like totally rediscovering all of her good stuff right now.
That's right.
Yeah, but I will say, because I don't work in music anymore and I don't really have the opportunity to like discover new artists as soon as they become like, you know, new and that kind of thing, I rely on Spotify a lot to find new music. So my like Release Radar and Discover Weekly, I discover a lot of like underground stuff from there.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a great tool to discover music. Everything is the same place, so
Totally, 100%.
And I will ask, what is your song of the moment? And I guess it's a Celine song.
It is, and I was listening to it on repeat today during my workout. It's That's the Way It Is by Celine Dion. What a classic.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's just so powerful.
And what about you, Jenia?
Well, so you're in good company, Mel. Mine is probably Wait For It from the Hamilton soundtrack. I discovered it again the other day, and I have not been able to stop listening to it.
I feel like a lot of people have been probably listening to that soundtrack because of its availability on Disney Plus.
So good. Such a good soundtrack.
I should really get to watching that. I haven't watched it yet.
I'm alone here. I don't even know what you're talking about. Sorry.
It's a musical that's available on Disney Plus.
It's a Broadway. It was a massive Broadway play before everything got shut down.
Okay. Oh, nice.
I keep hearing about it left and right.
Highly recommend. For anyone who likes music, it's above and beyond.
Okay, so that means Lili will talk about it like for the next 3 episodes.
And so what have you been listening to, Francois?
I'm still in Japan.
Okay.
I'm really digging Hiromi. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. It's a jazz pianist. I discovered her through Yvette Young. She's a guitar player that really get into the known right now, but she's always saying, because she started playing the piano before the guitar, and everyone asking her why you choose guitar, and she said, because when I was young I was playing the piano and I think it's not really a rock and roll instrument. You don't feel powerful playing the piano. But she always said, but Hiromi is the only girl I can see as embracing the piano and looking badass playing the piano. And I was curious, and I just dug and dug and dug. And she's really funny. She's having like an afro, almost, and she's always
Wow.
playing standing up. And she's just incredible. So I'm really into it, to the despise of my wife, because she doesn't like jazz at all. So that's just funny.
And does she only play music, or does she also sing?
She doesn't sing. It's only
Doesn't sing.
instrumental. So
That's really cool.
probably the image you have about like 3, 4, 5 musicians playing everything they want together, it's like a big mess, but I enjoy it. And you, Lili?
I've slowly, so for me, I think 2020 is the year I embrace K-pop and K-rock, because I've only been listening to Korean bands still. Other than Day 6, I've been listening to N Flying, which is another Korean rock band. And so there's 2 songs that are really, like, they're very poppy, but they're still considered a rock band because they play their instruments compared to all the other K-pop bands that are just 5 to 15 guys singing and dancing. Yep, so And Flying, it's very catchy, very, very catchy. I have a song stuck in my head all week. One
cool.
song in particular, Oh Really? And I don't know, I only know, like, because I started to learn Korean before I got into all these bands. And now that I've gotten into them, I understand a few words here and there. And the chorus is like, oh really, but in Korean and sometimes in English, and that's all I know of the song. So I just have that like 15-second repeat in my head that I just can't get out. And it's very catchy, it's very good.
Yeah, but at least you understand.
I just understand that part.
Lily, if it makes you feel any better, I officially like my first K-pop song, but it's like the really mainstream one that's like on the radio and in commercials now. What is it called? Dynamite?
Dynamite.
Don't
Is it
start
even
Lili on
considered-
that, please. Don't start her.
It's the only K-pop song I know.
But it's funny because I've also
Why
like,
is it too mainstream?
no, it's just I've been kind of defending myself in the last episode, saying how, because you know how BTS, they have such a big fan base that are very active, very vocal.
Mhm.
And so I've been defending myself, saying like, I'm not saying they're not good, but I just never really got into them. But I've
Yeah,
slowly
that's
started to
fair.
get into them now. So I'm like taking
They're just
back
very
those words.
catchy. Oops. But that's okay. That's the beauty of music. You grow and evolve and you develop new interests and new bands that you like.
Absolutely. And so let's get into this interesting part of the interview, I guess. Well, like not that wasn't interesting, but I guess no, that's not what I meant. I meant the real part of the interview.
You don't
then.
love podcasts, Lily.
Okay, I can start, I guess, because normally Lili's is the mastermind behind everything.
I'm trying to leave a little bit to you.
Yeah. So we're getting back into the CONFRONT magazine history. So the first question, probably the obvious one. Sorry, that's an hard word for me. Why did you want to join? First and foremost.
Jenia, do you want to take this one?
You know what? I don't remember the exact reason, and I don't know why we did it together. It kind of just, we just did. We went to Angel, who was at the time she's the one who created the magazine. For some reason, the 2 of us went together and we did an interview. I guess through a friend we knew who worked there already. We knew there were some openings, so we went together and.
Oh, yeah.
I think we interviewed together too in her kitchen, and I want to
We
say
did.
That's so funny.
I don't remember the exact reason, and Mel might have a different one. I just feel like the reason I wanted to do it was because I knew I wanted to work in music, and I saw these mutual friends of ours doing it and getting to talk to all these really awesome bands, and I was like, I want to talk to bands, and that was like the driving force for me at the start.
Interesting. because Lili already said she was really looking to talk with Ben too and interview them. So
Hmm.
it's probably a
Same.
common base.
I don't know about Mel. Mel, what was your
I was thinking like while you were saying that, because working in music was never necessarily my end goal. Like, I mean, if I could have, had Confront magazine and become profitable, then definitely. But I always wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be like journalism or writing in some way. So to me, that was a really interesting way in. And it was just a couple of years after Jenia and I had started going to concerts together. So it was super fun to be able to do it together.
Mhm.
And we were just going to shows together all the time. So I think that part just like maybe happened naturally.
Right.
We were going everywhere together at that point. Like we were always going downtown together. So yeah, but I think for me it was more the journalism aspect I was really excited about.
Oh, great.
It's just so funny that you interviewed for, I guess, a quote unquote job together.
I know.
I don't know if Jenia was going to bring this up, but I remember like we were both really, really nervous for that interview.
Yeah.
And it was in that interview that we got assigned our first band interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we
Whoops.
lose Mel.
Oh,
Well, we did. We got our first
Things
band
went
interview.
wrong. So that first interview was together. We did. We got our first band interview together, but so many things went wrong and we were so nervous. And I remember Angel laughed so hard at us. And like, we were just so serious about it. And we wanted to like make a good impression and do super well. And she just laughed at us for hours. Because
That's
just
true.
everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
That's very true.
so that leads us to
Yeah,
that leads us to our second question, which is, what was your first interview?
Mel, I'll answer this first because
Yeah.
your story is a little bit longer.
Oh, God.
So we did the Taste of Chaos tour, which asked me who was playing on it. I don't even remember. But it was not our genre of music. I can tell you that much.
It was Lamb of God, I think.
Sure.
Oh, nice. So
I
you
think
make
so.
Wendy Blight. That's nice. I'm
It was-
intrigued here.
Big one.
That's like Francois'
of
world of
chaos.
music there.
Okay, perfect. Then you'll appreciate this. My first interview was with the band Thursday, who I actually knew at the time. So, and I had listened to some of their music, but my interview there wasn't anything memorable about it. It was just, I remember we went downstairs and we did the interview, but one of my shining moments from that was, I don't know why I did it. And I still look back and cringe, but I asked the guy who I interviewed, who I don't remember now who it was, to write his name down so I would remember who I interviewed. And now I look back on that and I was like, oh gosh, it's like the most unprofessional thing you can do. You've got to know the name of the person you're interviewing. So that's the only thing I remember from it. But Mel's story is a little bit better.
You have a lot of pressure, Mel.
It's
now.
really not. No, like just for like the sake of like, I don't know, maybe the band would like listen to this one day. They were super nice. My first interview was Pierce the Veil. I didn't know the first thing about them.
That's
at
so
the
funny
time.
because I talked about them in my episode, and Marie also talked about them.
No.
Memorable, apparently.
That's so
But go on.
so funny. Okay, well, they definitely left an impression on me because I don't know. I think it was Taste of Chaos 2009. So I was like 19 years old, which now I feel like I was a baby. And I was super intimidated and super nervous. And they took me on their tour bus. So we were like all sitting, or their tour mini bus, like it was really small.
Yeah.
And we we're all sitting around the dining room table. And I don't remember. I think they were all there. I vaguely remember like a lot of guys being there. I didn't know the first thing about this band. It's not like a genre of music that I listened to. It was like a few days after our interview with Angel. And the interview itself, I don't remember anything like particularly memorable, but I do remember at some point in the interview, they started referencing the calendar that was on their wall, which for the life of me, I don't remember why this would have come up, but it was a calendar of naked women. And they drew like really obnoxious hair all over them. And they just thought that it was the absolute funniest thing. I've never in my life just wanted to like evaporate out of a bus more. I was so uncomfortable. But honestly, like they didn't give me like sketchy vibes or anything. Like they were really, really nice dudes. But I just remember leaving and being like, is this how this is gonna go? Like, is this what this is gonna be?
Welcome to the music industry.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's funny because if you had a lot of them there, then did you also have the problem that I had and that Anne-Marie had, was that since two of them are twins, they sound exactly the same in the recording.
I'm sure I did. I don't think I realized how difficult transcribing was going to be until that first interview, but I don't remember. I had a lot of problems transcribing in general. So like anytime there was more than one band member, I was like, oh, great.
Oh,
Like,
I
here we
know.
go.
I know.
Big time.
Same. At some point, I think I was debating whether I was going to ask them to identify themselves before they talked. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. That
We
was a
did
good
do
trick.
that at one point. Yeah, we
Mhm.
did start doing that.
but
Yeah.
I tried, and the band that I tried with, they just kept forgetting. So I was like, okay, well,
All right.
It's
Good
like
times. Here
with
for
more
now.
than like even more than one person, it just gets so hard.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh
it
yeah.
was really hard. I mean, I completely forgot the two of them were brothers, but there were definitely, like, there were some times where it wasn't hard at all. Like, if I knew a band really well and, like, if one person had, like, a really distinct voice. But I mean, there were multiple occasions where I would just, like, put off and procrastinate transcribing
Yeah,
because there
same.
was, like,
Mhm.
4 or 5 people. And I was just like, I don't, and then if you didn't do it right away, which was the better way to do it so that it was, like, fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
It was even worse. Like if you
Mhm.
waited 2 weeks, God forbid, I just made half of it up sometimes. Like, I think this person said this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said brothers, and I think you're right. They're brothers. They weren't twins, but yeah. But
Yeah.
even if they're not brothers, sometimes on the recording with all the background noise,
I have no idea.
everybody just sounds the same.
Yeah.
I completely forgot the trauma of transcribing until this very moment.
Push it out of your mind.
Like so far.
Yeah. Oh, it's bad. And I also forgot until I mentioned the voices being the same, because I would also push it back. And
yeah.
so then Angel would be like, okay, we're posting it in 2 days. I was like, uh-oh.
Oh crap.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
that brings up like a whole other topic, and I don't know, this might come up later, but Lili, I think you also did interviews at festivals where you would come home with like 15 interviews.
Mhm.
First of all, keeping track of who you interviewed, what bands, in what order. Like, I don't know
Yes.
how for the life of us we did that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, like I think the only one that I did that was long, like that I had a lot, was Warped Tour.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that all the bands I interviewed that day, I personally know and liked.
Oh my God.
So it
Good
wasn't
dream.
that much of a problem, because I wasn't
Yeah.
wondering like, oh, who is this? Or like,
Yeah.
because then when I covered like heavy MTL or something like that, I think we didn't get as many interviews during the day.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it'd be a lot easier to keep track. But Warped Tour, I came out of there with 10 interviews
Yeah.
and weeks of transcribing.
Literal. I like doing a festival guaranteed like 2 or 3 months of content for the magazine.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. Sometimes we still be posting it like 3 months later. Like,
So true.
remember when we interviewed this band at Warped Tour?
It's like not even relevant anymore,
Christmas?
but here you go. Yeah.
Well, that
Yeah.
can be nice, because the focus is on something else, and you bring back like new stuff, if you will.
True. Yeah.
So
Happy
maybe you
summer
can
break.
shuffle the thing a bit. So that,
You would just have to hope that they didn't release anything in between that time. so it
yeah,
wasn't
like a new
weird
album
past
and a new
tense and
tour.
yeah.
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 Exactly.
I'm also like, it's kind of coming back to me. So Jenia was the one who took care of mostly scheduling, at least at the end. I don't remember at the beginning, but at the end, Jenia mostly scheduled everything that went up. And I do remember for a few festivals, like you had to schedule multiple interviews going out per week, like 2 per week, because it was just too much. Like we'd
Yeah.
have content going until February.
Which is a
Yeah.
great problem to have.
Mhm.
You know?
Great
Yeah.
problem.
Couldn't
Great
complain.
problem. No,
Yeah.
not at all. You're right.
So let's continue digging into your memories. What are your best memories during the Confront magazine era?
Oh goodness. I'm gonna just kick it off by, and like this is one that I share with Jenia, but in general, first of all, being able to do a lot of interviews with my best friend was super fun. But our actual second interview was with one of our absolute favorite bands, and we went to their record label studio downtown Montreal. that was definitely like I don't remember that many of my interviews. Like I had to go digging to remind myself of who I interviewed.
Same.
But I still remember like where we were sitting in the record label, like in the office. I remember where they were sitting. Like it was so memorable. And they were always really, really down to earth. We got to interview them a few times, but that one, I was so freaking nervous. Like walking to the record label studio, I was just absolutely freaking out, but it was super fun to be able to have that with Jenia.
Who was it?
Wait, yeah,
If you don't mind.
The New Cities.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
You know, if you were keeping it a secret for a reason.
I
like,
was.
oh my God.
It's urban,
I was
okay? Back
keeping
off.
Yeah, that was definitely a good. I still remember I wanted to throw up walking down Saint Laurent to the offices. I was but what was good was it showed growth, because the next couple of times we did interviews, it was like there wasn't that level of nerves at all. You see how you get progressively more calm. I mean, it depends on the person. But, for best memories, there's so many. I've forgotten a lot of them, so that's good. But for me, one of the ones that really stood out was interviewing the All-American Rejects, just because that was like a high school band for so many of us. And I was actually terrified of interviewing Tyson because I didn't know what to expect, because he's such an out there personality. And it was one of the best interviews I've ever done. He was so well spoken about everything and such a lovely person to talk to. And it was, I don't want to say a pleasant surprise, but it was nice I didn't know what to expect. And that was really cool. That was like a high school bit of nostalgia there, even though I was barely out of high school at the time. But.
It's funny that you mentioned being nervous and then being gradually calmer, because I talked about when I first interviewed Sebastian from Simple Plan and my glasses fogged up because because that was one of my first like big interviews with them, and you know they were my high school years basically. Like that's all I listened to back then. But then I got my yearly event with them at the foundation event, and I gradually got better and better with time. Like I was of course always excited, but I never had to take off my glasses for the interview.
That's an excellent story. I don't think I've ever heard that one.
That's really good.
I was so embarrassed. I couldn't see a thing. It started here, and then it just gradually, I was like,
oh my goodness.
In the middle of summer, I guess.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, if it was winter, the same thing would have happened, because it was my face that was so hot.
Yeah, but at least you had an excuse during winter, but in the middle of summer, not so much.
Well, that's a good benchmark for you. Yeah. You knew that you were getting better because your glasses weren't fogging up anymore.
But I mean, by that time, I had already interviewed a lot, because you remember, like, I put my name down everywhere.
Oh yes, yes, we very much.
But there's a difference. There's a difference between like going and interviewing a band and interviewing like an artist that you admire and that you like listen to and that you want to be able to talk to them like almost as an equal, because sometimes it felt like that, right? Like it wasn't one of those like, hi, can I get a picture with you moments. Like you actually got 15 minutes of dedicated time with that person, and that felt like really special.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
I actually have like one, and I'm not going to mention the really obvious one, which I feel like Jenia was like, she'll definitely talk about this. I'm not going to mention that one, but I do have one other standout, like just talking about high school days. Years into my time with Confront, like maybe towards the end of Confront, I got to interview Fall Out Boy, who was like the band in high school for me, like on repeat for months. Like I actually wore out the CD. I listened to it so much, and I got to interview the lead singer Patrick Stump and one of the I think it was the guitarist, and it was right when they broke up for like a few years. I was devastated. It was when they got back together and they were doing like their reunion tour, and they were talking like pretty openly about their breakup and that time. So that felt like a really circle of life moment for me, because I was really nervous for that interview, but I remember doing like I felt really confident going in because I knew them so well, and then at the end Patrick Stump actually complimented my interview skills, and I don't know if you remember this, Jenia, but I actually like walked out basically in tears. I was like, my career is made.
Yeah, you were done at that point.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
was
retire.
like,
You can retire.
Yeah, I can retire now. That's it.
That's so cute.
Yeah. Good
It's really
times.
great that we got like, because you know, you got to interview Fall Out Boy, and I know for myself, I you know, I got my Simple Plan interviews. I got to interview the main a bunch of times as well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember also one of the times, I think you couldn't make it for an all-time low interview, and you called me the night before asking if I could do it. I don't remember why or how it happened. Do you remember this? Melissa, this is
Me?
sorry.
Clearly not.
Can't see you super well. So no, I don't remember. Do I? Maybe I do. I vaguely like it's kind of coming back to me.
Mhm.
But this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But were you excited about it? I don't remember.
I was
now.
absolutely excited because
Oh,
I,
good.
I love them. So I was
Ugh.
very excited, but I was just like, it sucked for you because you, for some
I don't
reason,
remember
couldn't
what
make it.
was.
Well, she's
I mean,
obviously
no,
fine with it because she doesn't even remember she was supposed to do it. So
I was probably sick. I mean,
Mm.
honestly, I kind of remember it being like on like maybe in the fall or the winter.
don't
That
remember.
kind of feels familiar. But yeah, I don't remember. But that's so cool. Like I'm so glad you got to do it because I think you probably appreciated it way more than I did.
And so going from the best memories, what are some of your worst memories? And so personally, I didn't name any names when I talked about mine because I just, you know, maybe they had a bad day, you know, I don't want to bash anybody, but I mean, if you feel like you need to say the names and go ahead. I know.
Jenia?
to be honest with you, like I had some kind of quirky interviews, but I don't remember genuinely ever having any really bad memories, even like, and even not just interviews, like reviewing shows and things like
Mhm.
that. I genuinely can't, and maybe I've just pushed them out of my mind, and that's why. But for the most, I mean, yeah, you got some interviews sometimes where like the person didn't give you much, and it would be really awkward, and you'd be sitting there going, okay, well, like you'd ask a question and it would be very to the point and they wouldn't work with you on it, and short answers, and that was the worst for me when they give you short answers and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, great, and you look down, it's 5 minutes and you've run out of questions, and you're
Yeah.
like, great, cool.
That's happened to me.
That's what sticks out for me. I don't actually genuinely remember any very bad memories. Mel?
So I know that there's one particular band that I interviewed that I had a really awful time. I remember who the band is. For the life of me, I can't remember why the interview was bad. I do remember them being like kind of obnoxious and maybe like not wanting to talk to me or being like really rude and sarcastic.
They were
And I remember
They were condescending. I remember they were very condescending to you. Yeah.
I think I walked out being like, what just happened? And they also, we were like, I guess in their dressing room, and they were chain smoking, which is really like, I really can't deal with like smoke if you'd like, but like 10 feet away from me, like it's one of those smells that like really like hits me in the wrong way. And I remember trying to stay like professional the entire time. What I remember from that interview is the smoking, but I'm sure it was more than that. But same as Jenia, like I don't, other than that particular one, like I don't remember any other artists sticking out as being like overly mean. Like there were a few non-memorable ones, or like, oh, okay, like that's it kind of thing. Like I guess you kind of always expect like musicians to be like fun and quirky and peppy and exciting and have things to say, but like you said, Lily, like they're not always having their best day.
No.
Maybe you're like the 10th interview of the day, like you don't know. So for the most part, honestly, like it was super fun all the time.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's interesting because when Lily introduced me to all that experience, because I did an interview with Lily on one-on-one to practice myself. But I was very curious because that was an all-girl magazine, and I was sure all the worst story were about like sexy jokes and like,
yeah, that's a good point.
and
I guess I
to
didn't
this
really
point,
think of that.
and I don't want to open like old wounds and stuff like that, but I was just surprised that doesn't really happen. I think it's Marie-Claire told us. I'm not sure it's Marie-Claire or that told us about a band that were doing like weird answers, and it was a girl, but otherwise.
And Marie had an interview where they were just kind of politically incorrect. And I think,
Yeah, on purpose.
yeah. And she said this interview is something that we didn't decide to run on the magazine in the end.
I don't remember that at all. Wow.
Yeah.
It vaguely rings a bell for me. But you're right. You know what? You make a good point. And I think we were lucky enough. Well, me, I can't speak for anybody else, but I think I was lucky enough to not have many experiences like that. And I think it's
Same.
because you were in a professional setting and you had the label rep there and you had like a team around you. You weren't alone with the band members. Maybe that would have been a different situation, but it was always professional and for the most part, thankfully.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's great to hear because
Yeah.
we need faith back in humanity. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I will say though, I know you mentioned it was an all girls magazine. We definitely hired guys. We had at least 3 in my recent memory. There
Yeah,
were
same.
guys.
I remember 3 also.
Maybe it's 3. No, I remember 4. There were at least 4.
But but at the beginning when it was us, Angel, like there was just it was
I think it was
really
just
all
women.
girls.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Totally.
and that's fine because there is enough boys in the music industry. I'm pretty sure Jenia can talk about that.
That is correct.
So true.
So regarding that, what are your craziest experience or memories during those years?
Mel, you could probably talk about what you didn't talk about in the best one because that's crazy in like a good way.
Yeah,
But-
that's true.
Yeah. But for me, without naming names, there was one band I interviewed where the lead singer wore a paper bag over his head the entire interview. And I never forgot that. That was, I could barely hear him. He was garbled.
Oh,
I don't know why he had
man.
I don't know why he had a paper bag over his head. It's not like it was like a shtick he used on the stage. He just decided that day he was putting a bag over his head. And that was one of my weirder memories for sure.
Music is one hell of a drug.
Yeah. I was like, hey, cool, great.
So true. Craziest. Yeah, I mean, I think like having the opportunity to interview, I'm gonna say like the bigger musicians felt really crazy at the time. So I had the chance to interview Ed Sheeran, who at the time was like just slowly exploding. Like he was still playing Metropolis in Montreal, which if anybody listening isn't from Montreal, it's like 2,500 people. And it was sold out for him. And he like, they probably could have sold more than one night for him, but at the time that's where he was at. It was like 2012, I think. I was already a fan for years, and I can say with certainty that it is the most nervous I've ever been for an interview. So, and also for my favorite interviews, it always rained. So I always like walked into my favorite interviews looking like an absolute drowned rat. Like I couldn't walk in looking great and professional. I had to be wet and soggy, but it's okay. But I do remember that from that interview. But he was super nice. I'm the one who totally ruined it. I'm usually like, I was a pretty decent interviewer. Like I knew how to continue the conversation. I could like pretty easily go for 20 minutes. And I remember like I had no words that day. I could not continue the conversation for the life of me.
Fine. You don't realize you went into, she was a complete, I was there taking pictures and she was a complete nervous wreck right up until he got there. And then she like switched on her light bulb and she was fine. I'm sure inside her head, she didn't think she was, but I felt like she was fine.
I think also because like, I know myself, I mean, Jenia and I did a lot of interviews together, but I know based on how I was talking and based on my inability to like have a conversation with him, I kind of feel like I stumped out a little bit there. But like it went okay. It's just I remember it being pretty short. I remember it being like a 10 or 11 minute interview, and I was like, why was it so short? And it was because I was unable to continue the conversation. But that was definitely like it was a really memorable moment, but also just like as a general rule, getting that chance to interview like bigger musicians kind of made us feel like we were really able to turn the magazine into something that was like really respectful and that people respected in the city. And that was a really cool feeling.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When you got that like approved thing, like for us, like another example, I think that Mel was here with me and I don't remember, but when we interviewed Goo Goo Dolls, like that was really cool because that's another band like from the 90s that you really, so getting approved to do that and you're right. It really was, that kind of showed, okay, we've hit the next level, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But that was also something that, you know, it was kind of surprising to me back then, because we would get all these big approvals, and back then it wasn't a big thing to have an online magazine yet, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when we started in like 2009.
Yeah.
But we would always get, well, not always, but a lot of the times we would get all these big approvals, whether it be for interviews or reviews or photos, you know?
Yep.
And that was also always very cool.
I'd just like to say, I think that speaks to the professionalism of everybody on the team. I think everybody really because if we had journalists going on site and like freaking out and having, I don't think we would have been approved for very much for very long.
Yeah, I agree.
True.
Yeah, and we always got like really good comments and feedback from people. I mean, especially later on, I would say like maybe in the last 1 to 3 years, Jenia and I did less interviewing and more like managing behind the scenes. So we spent more time like getting feedback and sending people to review shows or to do interviews. And it was in those years that we started to like, first of all, be able to like build our own team, like our own real dream team. But also that's where we got to see like people really shine, you know, like we often had people from Evenco, people from record labels being like, this person was like super professional, like so good. A lot of our writers were known by name, by our publicists and by the label heads. So that was something like really important to us. You know, we wanted to be a respected magazine, not only because we loved what we did, but it was just like a really nice feeling. And we knew that meant more opportunities for the team too.
You know what was also nice, and it kind of goes to Lily's point about doing the Simple Plan Foundation every year, was they did reach a point where the label reps knew who our favorite artists were. And so they would even reach out to us and be like, hey, so-and-so is coming to town, like ahead of anybody even knowing. And they'd be like, do you want an interview for this? And I thought that was so awesome. I was like,
I will say like they also, for example, for Simple Plan, like knowing that Lili always did it, like the coverage was always great. And I actually, this came to me really suddenly, like in the last few minutes, but Lili like invented a lot of questions that ended up becoming quite famous, like across the magazine, like the drawing question. Yeah, what was it that you asked them? Like
I always asked them to draw something that represented themselves.
That represents themselves. Yeah. And I like this, it just made interviews memorable, right? Like artists love interviewing with our writers because we had these, I think Anne-Marie had like her own fun, quirky, like this or that kind of thing going. And it really forced other writers to think outside the box. And a lot of our writers ended up doing that. And I think those label heads, when they saw that coverage, it made them want to come back for more because their artists actually enjoyed being interviewed by our writers. So that was pretty cool.
But it's funny because you mentioned my drawing, and sometimes though the reps knew that I would ask that, and so they would pop in like maybe like 5 minutes before the end just to make sure, because sometimes like I would ask that at the end and then we'd be stuck there for another 10 minutes sometimes because they really wanted to finish their drawing.
They did.
And so like I'd
do you
have
still have them, Lili? Do you have the drawings?
a lot of them left. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I just remember like Donald popping in like the door frame being like, I'm like, I don't like, they're drawing. I can't do anything about it anymore. But yeah.
That's so great.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, what a great question that was. Seriously, I stole it from you a bunch of times. Like I will full on say it.
Oh, shocking.
Because that was like my I wanted to make a point of standing out because I didn't want to just blend in with everybody else that they were going to get in, that they were going to be interviewed by during the day, you know? Like if I get to talk to my favorite band, I was like, they're going to remember me.
Agreed. Totally.
And even like towards the end, we started to put playlists coupled with the interviews. So we would ask them like, what have you been listening to?
So true.
What's the guilty pleasure of yours? And like, so we would have like a
sounds familiar.
So we'd have like a little playlist with the interview.
That's a good
because
point.
we brought back, Jenia, remember we brought back, it was a piece of a magazine that we always loved at the beginning, and somehow like over time it faded away, but then we brought back those daily, did we call it daily urges? That's kind of what's
yeah. I think so, or something weekly or daily. I don't remember. But
yeah, that's right. We must have renamed it.
Like, so it was like song suggestions, no?
Yeah, and but we would also put like the band's playlists there. Like today's like
yes.
weekly urge is from.
Oh yeah, so and
Yeah.
so's. Yeah, that was smart.
That was thoughtful of us. I like that. Yeah.
And so, what did you learn about yourself throughout the years with Confront magazine?
Jenia?
Jenia?
Well, gosh, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
I learned how to be, well, many things. No, I guess the most important was I knew I wanted to work in music, having worked at the magazine. That kind of solidified it, and all the contacts we made was huge for, you know, that industry is all about who you know. So that was a really good stepping stone. But I think it kind of taught me, like Lili kind of mentioned this last time we spoke, but it kind of taught you how to interview and how to speak to people and how to listen to people, and you got progressively better as you went along, and you'd understand, okay, this is how I can work off of somebody if they answer, they don't give me enough or this, and you kind of really got to hone that skill, which was I use now when I'm even with small talk in the industry. I'm like, okay, how can I get more out of this person? So that was really important.
That's true. So like sort of funny memory about this, and I promise I have something more serious and relevant to share after, but when both Confront and Into the Airwaves magazine #2 closed, and Jenia lived in Toronto, I would go visit her, or I tried to visit her like 1 to 2 times a year, and we typically went to a concert together. And a few years back, we were walking on the street, we were going to see Andrew McMahon of Something Corporate and Jack's Mannequin fame, who is both are like one of our top 5 musicians of all time. We've listened to him since we're like 14, 15 years old. And he was actually an artist that we never got to interview for Confront. Like it just never worked out. It never panned out. He didn't come to Montreal very much either. And when the magazine closed, we happened to run into him on the street. And it was really funny because when it happened, like something clicked. And I've never done this in my life. I ran over to him and I started talking to him as if I was interviewing him. I was like, hey, how are you? Like, are you excited about your show tonight? I've never done this to an artist in my whole life.
It was really funny, but really like, you know,
honestly, I'm not a smooth person, like at all. I'm really typically, I feel like a pretty awkward person. And like Jenia just like came along, went with it, and she started chatting with him, and we got a photo with him. And after, she was like, interviewer Mel really came out there, and I was like, she did, and it was all for this like moment, like this being able to meet like my top artists. This is why I did Confront. But in all seriousness, like I always wanted to be a writer and a journalist, so I think I knew that I wasn't going to pursue this as a career. It's not what I studied in school. It's not where my career was going in general. But it was, I think, more than anything, like really good memories for me. It built a lot of confidence for me in being able to talk to artists, and just being able to like interview your favorite artist for 10 years while getting to go to shows, being able to multitask, like, you know, managing a team, managing a magazine, going to university. It added a lot to my resume that I was also able to like build on in my career later. And importantly, managing a team. I studied in management, so being able to do that was something that I was super passionate about on Confront. Jenia managed a lot of the music side of it, and I focused a lot on the hiring, you know, getting team members onboarded, getting all of that set up, because that's something that was super passionate for me. So even though I'm not currently managing a team, I still work with coordinators and manage like much significantly smaller teams. But that was a really cool part of it for me, being able to build that for free on my resume, and being able to get that experience was really invaluable.
Yeah, because those are skills that you're not going to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm curious, Jenia, since you're still working in the music industry, did you run out through like people you met during the CONFRONT magazine years?
Yes, I have. I have, and it's been a really nice surprise. I mean, a lot of the industry I knew was in Montreal, and funny enough, it was a lot of the majors, because a lot of the artists we worked with were signed to majors, so we knew a lot of so when I went to Toronto and I went to the indie side, it was kind of like but a lot of there wasn't overlap, especially on the publicity side, because a lot of the publicists we dealt with were based out of Toronto. And it was really kind of cool to bump into them and be like, oh, hey, you know, I remember you sending me 400 emails a week. But yeah, definitely there was overlap.
Oh, nice. And did you make any musical discovery through the magazine? Like
Did we ever?
there's some that's standing out.
Melissa. Oh goodness. You know what? There's probably so many that I can't remember, but I think my favorite was discovering Frank Turner, just because it was at Osheaga, and it was one of those festivals like we were talking about where I had like 15 interviews that day. And I remember his rep texting me being like, okay, your interview with Frank is in like 15 minutes. And I was like, I didn't ask to interview Frank Turner. And he was like, oh, well, I have you slotted in. Can you do it? And I was like, well, I guess so. So I went with no knowledge of who he was or anything. And to this day, it was my favorite interview I ever did, because he was just so interesting to talk to and was so connected to his fans and so in love with what he did. And I went home and I listened to his music, and now he's probably like in my top 5 of favorite musicians.
Wow.
It was so random, and it was just one of the beautiful parts of interviewing, especially at festivals and stuff where you got to just meet so many people. But definitely Frank Turner for me.
Oh. And
What
Melissa?
about you?
Yeah, for me, so Jenia alluded to this. We had, I don't know if you guys have talked about this on previous podcasts, but we had an inbox submit at Confront magazine is kind of coming to mind, where publicists just sent everything. Like, we got a lot to our personal emails, but a lot of it went there. And I think Jenia and I took turns cleaning it out just because it had to be done. And I remember like years ago, one day I was cleaning it out, and we always looked at the stuff that the majors sent us, like Sony, Warner, etc. And I actually remember the day that we got James Bay's first single. He was like brand new signed. Like, we literally had never heard of this British singer before. And I remember listening to his song, and I think I took it and maybe wrote a Daily Urge about it, or because I really liked it. It really resonated with me. And then I ended up getting to interview him. I think he came to Montreal really shortly after. Really nice guy, definitely one of my top interviews. And then when he, like, within the year, he exploded. And I got to interview him a second time when his second album came out. And he was like a full blown, like a top artist on the label. And I, to this day, still have his music on repeat. Like, he's so good. And then I think I missed him at Osheaga. I was really sad, but every time I've seen him play, like, he's just been really incredible.
That's also what was nice about working for a magazine, is that, you know, you're exposed to so much. As like, you know, like I said earlier, I would put my name down for anything that I was able to do. So there's a lot that I discovered through that, because it was just, oh, well, I don't have anything to do that day. Let's just do it. Without necessarily knowing anything about the band.
Yeah, I miss that. Like, I envy Jenia's work, because I know that she gets to discover like so much local talent. And literally the only way other than Spotify is if Jenia sends me something or talks to me about something that she's working on. It's without a doubt the thing that I miss the most about working for a magazine.
Yeah, it really kept you on top of everything. Like, really, even now for me, like, I know my indies, but it was not even to the same level. Like, I don't know who's on the radio right now, and I kind of miss that.
Totally.
But it's funny because my Gmail is still the same from all those years ago. So I still get emails. Like, I still get them.
Like a week ago.
Oh yeah, I got an email from someone last week pitching, like, we'd really like to be on Confront. And I was like, so I didn't answer it. And then they wrote me back again. And I was like, okay, listen, Confront closed like how many years ago? And she was like, oh, sorry. And I was like,
Well, I mean, I just get the general, since I wasn't doing any of like the managing part of it. I just get the general, like, probably they never took me off for their publicist.
the blast.
So yeah, but it's funny.
I was signed up to, actually, I think François will appreciate this. I was signed up to one of the like heavy metal record label like emails, and they still send me all of the advances of their albums, and they mean absolutely nothing to me. I'm like, who is this? Like,
Yeah.
We'll start sending them your way.
Put me on the reply list. I'm fine with that.
And so you've mentioned this a couple of times, but how was it taking over the magazine? Like taking over all the managing part of it, all the, how was it?
Jenia, do you remember the day that Angel, like, I think she messaged us and she was like, can you guys come over? And we were like, yeah, like, what is this about? Like, I will never forget that meeting. When she told us that she was pregnant and expecting twins and couldn't manage the magazine anymore. Life-changing, like super life-changing.
Yeah, I think Mel and I at the time had gotten more responsibility. I want to say 'cause she had her first daughter, and then I think she had to step back a bit. So we got a bit more responsibility there, but it didn't change things drastically for us. Like Mel said, like on a professional level, like it really taught us a bunch of new skills. But I really like I'm a little OCD, so I really like organizing and everything. So like doing all the scheduling, whatever, it didn't bother me. And it kind of, it was like we touched upon, it was a really good way to stay on top of everything. Like I knew that we weren't going to miss anything going through our inboxes and everything. Like we'd be able to sift through all the music. And so that was really, I think it was really fun. Like it didn't feel like work.
Oh, that's great.
No, it didn't feel like work until it did, which is why the magazine ended up closing. But for years and years, like it was such a passion project. This actually just came back to me, but right before we were offered those editors-in-chief positions, Jenia did an internship with Confront magazine after going to school. Do you remember that?
Oh,
Dum dum dum. No.
I feel like I kind of remember this.
Yeah,
No, I don't remember this. Did I?
It really suddenly, yeah. After you finished at Trebas, you did an internship, and I think this is why we ended up getting that position, because you ended up taking a lot of responsibility off of Angel, and I think like she saw that you had a lot of potential to run the magazine, and I kind of like tagged along for the ride, just because we did like so much of it together.
You're right. No, that you are absolutely right, because it was, there was such a bad school that they couldn't get me an internship anywhere else. And I needed an internship to graduate. So I was like, guess I'm going to do it at Confront, where I technically was already interning. You're absolutely right. So I asked to take on more so that I could graduate.
Oh my God.
But you ended up doing a great job. And I think like everything happens for a reason, because if that hadn't happened, like we wouldn't have, I don't know that she would have considered being able to move on from the magazine.
That's true.
Yeah. But I will say, like, to give us a little bit of credit, like we really grew that magazine. Like it went from a very traditional, I don't know if you remember this, Lili, it was like right when we all started, but it was very like, we had like even like a magazine cover.
Yes, I remember, because I was doing that at the beginning. Right. When I first joined, I did a few of those covers.
Exactly. I think it started with Vanessa, and then when you came on, like it probably moved to you a bit more. And it was just a monthly publication. Like it was one interview per month, one cover story per month.
No, we had the round tables, which was twice a month.
Oh yeah.
So we had the big like feature article that was really just once a month. And then we had the 2 interviews.
That's right. You're right. Yeah. There was a table of contents that she like filled out, like a weekly interview or whatever. And we like totally just, I don't remember when it happened, but when I think like eventually when we felt comfortable enough, we ended up like, we're like, no, we're going to like blow this up. Like we're going to completely change this. Like we brought Confront to social media. We brought it to Instagram. We like tripled the team size. Like we've spoken to Angel about this at length, but I know that she was always really happy that she chose us to take over the magazine on her and Christine's behalf. And like, it taught me a lot of the foundations of marketing that I, to this day, still use in my job.
And like you said, you got all that experience for free.
Love it. Yeah, so great. So good.
And so at some point, you both decided to close down Confront. And I think it was a year and a half later, you came back with Into the Airwaves.
It was actually 12 months to the day.
12 months, yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly a year. At 6 months, Jenia and I started talking about doing something. And then within another 3 months, we bought we started talking about the names. And once we chose a name, we bought the domain, and it took us a couple months to like build it up from there, but it happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we didn't stop Confront. Like we both had full-time jobs at that point, and it was harder to manage it, but we didn't. I think if we both could have chosen, we wouldn't have shut, like, because the whole website had to get shut down, and I think it came down to costs, really. Like I was telling Mel the other day, like I've seen a couple of local music websites do GoFundMe pages now for the readers, and it's paid for their websites to be up for like the next 5 years. And I was like, we didn't have that opportunity then, which was really unfortunate, and the costs were just too much for like the two of us to have going, and that was really disappointing. So it wasn't like we shut it down and then 6 months later we're like, oh, we want to do it again. It was, how can we keep this going? And even then
there was a mix. Yeah, there were, I don't know if you remember this, Jenia, but there was a mix of like sort of frustrating things that accumulated to it closing, and one of it was that the website kept getting hacked.
Yes.
Because the website archives were so large. Like we had thousands of posts, and they kept getting hacked, and something kept going wrong with the website. And we did like an internal GoFundMe. I don't remember what it wasn't GoFundMe, but whatever it was at the time. And we raised money within the team because we needed to buy like the software to like get it cleaned up or whatever it was, but it was hundreds of dollars. And I mean, we were working full time. I don't think I was working full time. I was a student, but
I was
like
definitely a student.
Yeah, like none of us combined had enough money to support what the magazine needed in order to keep our archives and also keep the magazine. Like it was so messy, and I remember like trying to fix it on many occasions because I did a lot of the back end of the website at the time, and it just like was not happening. It caused so much frustration. It took a lot of the love out of that project for me. Like I was not happy at the end of Confront because I also, in managing a team, I wasn't doing a lot of what I loved for the magazine, which was doing interviews. I was literally just absorbed in all of this like hacking technical stuff that I wasn't familiar with.
I completely forgot about that. But yeah, now that you mention it, like every other day when we would post something, you'd click on it and the link wouldn't work. Or there would be some like random stuff in the middle, or
it would crash. Like we'd get a good interview. I remember a couple of times we launched a really good interview, a good thing, and we'd get an influx of people and the whole website would crash too. And it was trying to keep that up. And I was like, we're losing like hundreds of thousands of views because it just couldn't.
So now I understand why Lili asked her boyfriend to join in our little project to manage all the technology.
My boyfriend made our website.
Nice.
Yes. See, you remembered deep down.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We need an IT guy.
Yeah, you need one. Honestly, it was so mentally exhausting.
But with all that experience and memories, good or bad, how was it to start a new magazine from the ground up?
Oh, so good.
Probably
it
easier,
was good.
I guess.
It was good because what I really, and I like a huge shout out to like the labels and all the people who had faith in us, because we had 0 views when we started that website, and they were still giving us big name shows and big name artists, just because, you know, normally you have to show stats to the artist's team to be like, yeah, you should talk to this website because they have X amount of stats a month, and we had none. And they still, I guess the rep sold us well enough, and I was so grateful for that. That they believed in us.
I feel like if you had waited longer, it wouldn't have had the same impact, because then people would have had time to forget what you had done with Confront.
That's true.
Yeah,
we were so lucky. Like 75% of the team rejoined. They were like, let's do it. Like, let's get back on the interview train. It was so good.
Yeah.
It was basically just everybody, like, it's true. Most of us came back. And
a lot. I mean, I don't remember like hiring that many new people. But what I wanted to add on that was like just to like start off, Angel and Christine gave us without a doubt like the best opportunity that we could have had. But there were many years, particularly at the end, when Jenia and I had really built up our confidence as co-editors in chief, where we knew we wanted to do our own thing. Like we loved Confront like our baby, but it wasn't ours. And that was something that weighed on us a lot. But we also didn't want to start over because we had such a good thing with Confront. We had such a good team, we had good reps, we had good stats, like we really built that up. So I think like if all of those website issues hadn't happened, I don't know that, yeah, exactly. I don't know that anything else would have come of it, but we had always wanted to do that. We talked about it a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I think that about wraps up our interview. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Anything that you forgot to talk about, or?
It was a good trip down memory lane.
Yeah,
that's for
my
sure.
God. I feel like I'm 23 years old again, and it's just so great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, so fun. It is almost midnight here, so I'm gonna
Okay.
Thanks for inviting us, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank you.
coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming. That was pretty
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
No, it was so nice. Have a good day, guys. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.